I never imagined my life would unravel into one of those tragic stories you hear about, whispered in hushed voices, shaking heads, full of disbelief. You always think such betrayals happen to others, to strangers in distant places, never to you. But here I am, standing in the ruins of what I once believed to be a strong, loving marriage. My name is William Carter. For 15 years, I built a life with my wife, Eleanor, a life I thought was secure, bound by trust and love. We had everything: a beautiful home nestled in the countryside, financial stability, and what I believed to be a genuine partnership. But I was blind. Eleanor entered my world when my son, James, was just 6 years old. His mother, my first wife, my first love, had passed away, leaving me to navigate the vast, lonely expanse of grief while raising a child on my own. Then came Eleanor, warm, understanding, eager to step into the role of a mother. She held my hand through the darkest nights, whispered reassurances when sorrow clawed at my chest, and over time became more than just my wife. She was my anchor, or so I thought. James grew up to be everything a father could hope for, strong-willed yet respectful, confident yet kind. At 21, he had just returned from university, carrying with him a quiet maturity that made me proud. I never imagined he would be the one to betray me in the cruelest way possible. It started subtly, so imperceptibly that I almost missed it. Eleanor became distant, often lost in thought, her phone never leaving her side. The glow of the screen would illuminate her face at odd hours, and the moment I entered the room, she would lock it, set it down with an air of forced nonchalance, and smile, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I told myself she was just preoccupied, perhaps needing space, but the growing chasm between us was undeniable. The warmth that once defined our marriage had turned cold. Looking back, the signs had been there long before I allowed myself to see them. It had begun while James was still away at university, though I hadn't understood it then. During the holidays, when he returned home, I noticed the way Eleanor's demeanor shifted around him. At first, I thought it was nothing more than maternal affection, a stepmother ensuring her stepson felt at home. But then there were the glances that lingered a second too long, the private jokes that excluded me, the way her touch would brush his arm as though savoring the contact. One evening, after James had been working out in the backyard, he stepped inside, sweat glistening on his skin. Eleanor was waiting. She handed him a glass of water, her fingers grazing his as she murmured, "You've really grown up, James." Her voice was low, almost wistful, her eyes tracing his features with something that wasn't motherly concern. James chuckled, running a hand through his damp hair. "Guess I'm not a kid anymore." A pause followed, a moment that should have been nothing, something fleeting, ordinary. But it wasn't. It hung between them, thick with something unspoken, something forbidden. Eleanor bit her lip, then quickly turned away, though not before James caught the look in her eyes. From that night on, the boundaries between them blurred. Movie nights became secret rendezvous. Conversations by the fireplace stretched into the late hours, whispered words and stolen laughter filling the silence I once shared with her. When I worked late, they spent more time together, their stolen moments growing bolder. The touches that had once been fleeting became deliberate, lingering. James, young and full of admiration, had always seen Eleanor as a vision of grace, a woman who carried herself with quiet confidence. And Eleanor, neglected, yearning for something she wouldn't name, was drawn to the energy of a man who made her feel seen in a way she hadn't in years. I told myself it was my imagination, that I was overanalyzing, being paranoid. But doubt gnawed at me, a silent predator lurking beneath the surface of my thoughts. I could no longer ignore the sinking feeling in my chest, the whisper of suspicion growing louder each day. And so, burdened by a truth I wasn't ready to face, I confided in my best friend, Henry Sinclair. I had known Henry Sinclair since childhood. He was a detective by trade, sharp as a knife, with an uncanny ability to see through deception. The moment I confided in him, he picked up on my unease, his keen eyes narrowing over the rim of his whiskey glass. "Something isn't right, Will," he said that evening at the pub, his voice low and firm. "You need to dig deeper." Taking his advice, I hired Margaret Holloway, a woman with a reputation for unearthing secrets people prayed would remain buried. She was relentless, methodical, a predator in a world of prey. Within a week, she had found the unthinkable. The truth was far worse than I had ever imagined. It was a Thursday evening when my world collapsed. I had returned home earlier than expected from a business trip, hoping to surprise Eleanor. Maybe take her out to dinner, rekindle what little remained of our marriage. I hadn't called ahead. I wanted it to be spontaneous, a reminder of the love we once shared. But the moment I stepped inside, something felt wrong. The house was eerily silent, save for the faint murmur of voices drifting from upstairs. My heartbeat pounded against my ribs, the weight of dread settling in my stomach like lead. Step by step, I climbed the stairs, each footfall dragging me closer to a truth I wasn't prepared to face. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Through the narrow gap, I saw them. Eleanor and James stood too close, their bodies angled toward each other, their voices hushed. The intimacy between them was unmistakable, the kind of closeness that had no place between a mother and her stepson. My breath hitched, my vision darkened at the edges, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I might collapse under the weight of my own heartbreak. James saw me first, his face drained of all color, his body stiffening like a man caught in a crime he could never justify. Eleanor gasped, stepping back instinctively as if distance could undo what had already been done. William, she stammered, but I barely heard her. The sound of my own pulse roared in my ears, drowning out whatever feeble excuse she might have tried to offer. How long? My voice was steady, but it trembled with barely contained rage. Neither of them answered at first. James lowered his gaze, shame etched into every rigid line of his body. Eleanor swallowed hard, her lips parting as she whispered the words that shattered the last fragile pieces of my world. A few months. The woman I had devoted my life to. The boy I had raised as my own. No, not my son-in-law. He had forfeited that title the moment he betrayed me. I wanted to scream, to break something, to make them feel even an ounce of the agony clawing at my insides. But I didn't. I turned on my heel and walked away. From the house, from the marriage, from the family I had spent years building, now reduced to nothing but ashes. That night, Henry found me in a cheap motel, a bottle of whiskey half empty in my grip. He didn't waste time with empty condolences. Instead, he sat across from me, his expression hardened with fury. "You have to fight back, Will," he said. "Don't let them destroy everything you've built." Margaret arrived soon after, ever the consummate professional. Without a word, she placed a thick file in front of me, documents, evidence, the arsenal I needed to ensure Eleanor wouldn't walk away unscathed. "Divorce her," she said flatly. "Make sure she gets nothing. And as for James, you need to show him what betrayal costs." So I did. Before Eleanor could get her hands on a single cent, I drained our joint accounts. Every last dollar was transferred into a private trust, safely beyond her reach. Our assets, once shared, were now solely mine. She would walk away with nothing but regret. I exposed them both. The affair was no longer a dirty little secret whispered in the dark. It was out in the open for the world to see. Friends, colleagues, neighbors, the whispers followed them like shadows, tarnishing whatever reputation they had left. James lost everything. He had always relied on my wealth to secure his future, but now the safety net was gone. I cut him off, disowned him, stripped him of every advantage he had taken for granted. He would learn, as I had, the bitter taste of betrayal. Eleanor begged. She pleaded, her once confident voice breaking with desperation. "You made your choice," I told her, my words as cold as the emptiness she had left in me. "Now live with it." Disgraced and penniless, she left. The perfect world she had once curated for herself crumbled into ruin. James, too, disappeared from my life, no longer the boy I had raised, but a stranger I would never forgive. The betrayal had broken me, but I was no longer a victim. I had taken back control, and as I walked away from the wreckage, one truth remained. Revenge had never tasted so sweet.